Hi, I'm Bill Griffith, a docent or tour guide at the Museum of Flight Seattle. And in our collection we have an aircraft called the MD-21, which has the same inlets and engines as the more familiar SR71. I find it difficult to explain the workings of this amazing power plant combination without any visual aids, so I came up with this short YouTube video to help explain it. If you've just stumbled upon this by browsing YouTube, welcome. The information that I'm using comes from a booklet by another docent at the Museum of Flight, John S. Anderson. However, any errors will be my own. Let's get started. The propulsion system of the Blackbird has three separate components: the inlet, the engine, and the afterburner. The three components play different roles at different phases of flight. For example, on takeoff, the engine and the afterburner produce 100% of the thrust. The intake, by contrast, actually reduces takeoff thrust by 25% by restricting the air. This situation changes dramatically at 80,000 feet in Mach 3.2. This is the realm where the Blackbird was designed to operate. The engine now is producing 17.6% of the thrust, the afterburner 28.4%, and the intake a whopping 54%. Both the engine and afterburner, which are mixing fuel with air, produce less thrust than the intake, which is using no fuel at all. This is counterintuitive, so it deserves a closer examination. The short answer is that the intake is acting as an air compressor, and this compressed air provides this added thrust. Most of us experienced this method of propulsion before by doing this. The air on the outside of this balloon is atmospheric pressure, and the air inside is greater than that. When the balloon is released, off it goes. Well, the air in the Blackbird is compressed by controlling shock waves. Shock waves form on an aircraft when it exceeds the speed of sound. We will now look at the three types of shock waves used in our airborne compressor. They are the normal shock wave, the oblique shock wave, and the reflected shock wave. The normal shock wave. Air passing over an aircraft begins to break the speed of sound when traveling over the wing. As most of you know, because of the shape of the wing, the air on the top of the wing is moving faster than the air below it. Near the speed of sound for the entire aircraft, the wing is already experiencing supersonic flow, and when this occurs, a normal shock wave forms. Behind the shock wave, the air returns to subsonic speeds. This normal shock wave, which forms at 90 degrees to the airflow, is an important component in our inlet engine combination. Because the air must be subsonic before entering the engine, this is because of the engine's inability to handle supersonic flow. The next type of shock wave is the oblique shock wave. In this picture we can see an oblique shock wave that starts at the nose of the aircraft and forms a cone around it. The higher the Mach number, the closer the cone hugs the aircraft. A reflected shock wave, seen up above, is an oblique shock wave captured inside of an inlet of an intake of an engine, in this case a scramjet. As the shock wave bounces around the intake, the pressure and temperature increase as the speed decreases. Now let's attempt to put all this together. At Mach 1.4, these forward bypass doors unlocked. This is important because the bypass doors work in tandem with the nose cone to keep the normal shock wave positioned in the throat, or the smallest portion of the inlet. At 1.6 Mach, with the nose cone fully extended, a shock wave will form. And as the airspeed increases beyond that, the nose cone starts retracting, adjusting the oblique shock wave. And at 3.2 2 Mach, the shock wave is just about on the cowl lip. And in its configuration, the reflected shock wave and the normal shock wave produce subsonic air that is 18 psi. This compares to the outside air pressure, which is 0.4 psi, which is a 45-to-1 compression ratio. And this produces 54% of the thrust. Now the question comes to mind, if 3.2 is good and 18 psi, why not 3.8 and 20 psi? The problem with that is that this is a combination of inlet and engine, and the Pratt & Whitney J58 engine has a limitation of the temperature of the air entering the engine, which is 427 degrees Celsius, about 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Beyond that temperature, the turbine section in the back of the engine can be damaged if the air becomes hotter than that. So that's why the limitation. There is a story that over Libya, SR71 was being chased by some SAM missiles, and so he increased the speed to something like 3.4 Mach. But undoubtedly at that position, that speed, he was doing some damage to the engine. This, of course, is a simplified explanation of this power plant. Perhaps you viewers can add something that increases our understanding of this inlet-engine combination. I look forward to hearing from you. Or maybe you were involved in the development of this marvelous machine. In that case, let us know what you did. Thanks for watching.